Good. And so that's kind of where she moves to in the next section here. She asks the question, can a moral relativist oppose, for instance, racism, right? The moral relativists argue that there is no universal, timeless moral law, right? It's kind of based on culture or perhaps even the individual, but there's nothing that crosses over, right, to various cultures and that sort of thing. So there's no universal moral law. And she says, yet they are likely to turn around and insist that acts like racism or abuse are wrong. That is, they're not just unpleasant, but they are personally offensive, but they're genuinely wrong, right? And so, the issue is, how can they hold that view? The best or the most they can say is it's wrong by society standards, or it's wrong by my individual standards. But why should I care about your individual standards, right?
Yeah.
I have my own individual standards.
We should be inclusivists and include all points of view.
Right. And so she says moral relativists may claim to be about tolerance and humility, but in reality, it often fosters a highly judgmental, condemning attitude because, if you say, no, something is wrong that they don't agree with, then, they have to express that disagreement. And once they do that, their position fails.
Right.
She says, so what about Christianity, right? She says, instead, the Christian worldview fits who we are. Because humans are made in the image of God, they are hardwired with an intrinsic moral sense. So that's where the moral sense comes from, right? We are made in the image of God. And so as part of image bearers, right, we have an intrinsic feeling for, or more than that, an intrinsic knowledge of what's right and wrong.
Right.
And Paul even says that unbelievers in Romans chapter 2 know the law because it's written in their heart, right? Yeah. And so as image bearers, that's where that's our source in terms of knowledge, right? Of course, the source of morality comes ultimately from God, right? His character, who he is. But that's our source. And so Christianity can meet this issue with regard to a universal moral code, right? It's based on the character and person of God.
Right. And
we know it because we're image bearers, and he has written that in our hearts, right? So that's so this is a point, as Patrick was mentioning, of contact that we can make with these kinds of folks, right? We can point this out and then help them to see how our worldview better fits the facts, and that's how you critique a worldview.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Secondly, issue that she deals with is skeptics, right? Epistemological skeptics, or skeptics about knowledge. And she says, on the one hand, they claim that we cannot be sure of anything, but on the other hand, they're likely to insist that science, for instance, has proven their favorite theories, right? Well, obviously, you can't have it both ways, right?
Yeah, and I will say that if you've been on the internet and you've watched the internet and Christian debates, Matt Dillahunty is famous for this. Well, I don't know what's true. You don't know what's true, and yet here's all this evidence about truth or things that we know.
I don't even know what supernatural means. Every time someone talks about supernatural, natural distinction, it's so arbitrary. I don't know.
Except that you're asserting it's non-material, which I would say is supernatural.
So then is quantum entanglement supernatural because it doesn't happen in space-time? It violates the speed of light.
I don't know.
Is consciousness supernatural?
I don't know.
Well, then there you go. If you're just going to say, I don't know, I'm going to say that.
And I'm not just saying I don't know. I'm saying I don't know and you don't either, but you seem to be claiming that you do.
How do you know I don't know?
I don't know that you don't know.
Well,
what I'm saying is that your argument for why you know is flawed.
How?
Because saying something is the best explanation that we have, we know that the fact that something is the best explanation we have doesn't mean it has there's any likelihood that it's actually true or that it is the best explanation we will ever have.
It's possible, yeah.
And so it's that have your cake and eat it too type deal where he can get off it by saying, oh, that's your explanation? Well, that's wrong because you can't possibly know that. You need this this kind of like complete certainty of everything that you could possibly
So the
know.
problem with that is, if indeed you're claiming that my explanation is wrong, and you're also claiming that you don't know what the truth is, how can you do that, right?
Yeah, and so he's synonymous with never having to be able to present something that's a positive case for it. So
except the case that he knows that your position isn't, that the position that there's no positive case is the right position.
right.
Yeah. And so, so skeptics on the one hand claim that, they're not sure. On the other, their favorite theories are backed by science. She says, but in practice, right, they probably check their bank accounts to verify that the figures are correct, right? Because, I want to make sure I have the money in my bank account. Well, okay, how do you know? Right?
No, money is just like intangible. Nothing really is worth anything.
So notice the move that she's made here. She's moved from this high intellectual type of critique now to bring it down to, for instance, here, money, right? Practical issues. And so that's a technique that we can use in apologetics, right? We don't want to necessarily keep it at the high intellectual level.
What is your metaphysical starting point in all this?
We want to bring it down and apply it to everyday life so that we can see how these various positions deal with everyday life. Right? If the skeptic says, I cannot know, then why are you checking your bank account? Right? Because you can't know, right? And so she says, in short, they live and act as though they do have access to genuine knowledge, right? No matter how skeptical someone is, some things are virtually impossible to doubt, at least in practice, right? And so, so they have to act as if the Christian epistemology, that is the Christian view of knowledge, is true, that we can know. They have to act that way in everyday living. Right? You can't live, life, quite frankly, without borrowing, as you suggested, borrowing from the Christian worldview.
Right. Yeah, and no one takes their car and approaches the railroad tracks where the signal's down. They see the train heading what appears to be towards them, and they're just like, well, right now I don't believe in physicality, so I'm just gonna
or maybe
here.
I don't know if it's true.
I don't know if there's other minds, and so this is what's happening. I'm the only mind there, and so the train's just going to pass through. Yeah. But no one honestly lives in that.
If they did, they wouldn't live very long, right?
or I like her joke on 223. If anyone does deny these basic facts, we call him insane or a philosopher.
So the fact that everyone has to function as though Christianity is true opens a creative opportunity, she tells us, for addressing the secular world, right? Christianity provides the basis for the way that humans can't help behaving anyway.
Can't help.
Right.
Must do.
That's right. In making the case of the biblical worldview, a strategic place to start is by showing that it alone gives a basis for the ways we all have to function, no matter which worldview we hold. Right?